And once again, I'm chatting with my good friend Collin, and we may actually end up saying something useful here. You never know. It can happen. And
This is quite improv
well,
tonight.
and the thing is, it's me being a dick because it's like, if I was a good friend, I would just have a video chat with my good friend, but I'm trying to somehow turn it into product. So there I am.
Gotta have the content.
Well, at least I'm not doing marketing yet. Give me a little while.
uh, uh, so you drink minimum to be in marketing.
Okay, so one of the things this has been catching my interest and apparently has been catching yours is the whole population implosion thing that's been going on. Now, I'm going to throw a little bit of a clarification here because, interestingly enough, I made a comment in one of my videos about population implosion, and people came to the conclusion that I was referring to some kind of white depopulation, racist stuff, and it's like no, 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 no. It's actually this country is one of the few countries that's in good shape in this whole scenario. It's actually lots of foreign countries and lots of non-Europe. Well, Europe's in trouble. Asia's in trouble, but we're actually in kind of good shape. So it's nothing to do with replacement or anything along those lines. We're talking about a huge disagreement demographers are having right now, where essentially the UN demographers are saying, "Oh yeah, we're heading towards 10 billion," and other demographers are saying, "How? Look at the various countries. Look what's going on in them." And how can you come to this conclusion? So now who I the gent we've both watched his videos. He's kind of been the guru of this. I've been seeing him all over the place suddenly talking about the whole population implosion demographic thing. What's his name again?
Peter Zeihan?
Yep, that's him.
Yeah.
So what kind of caught your eye on this guy, and what makes you think he's just not full of shit?
Well,
Well, because it's like,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, okay. So actually, where I first caught this guy was Chris Williamson's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I like Chris Williamson. I know he's not for everybody. I have a real soft spot in my heart for bro science, and he does a lot of that, and it's fun, and I like it. So, but he happened to have this guy Peter Zeihan on, and I think I'm saying his name correctly, but he kind of just went over the whole thing, and he was going over, like, people are saying, Chinese are going to take over the world, and he's like, no, there's actually going to be way more people in, India than China in just, a decade. Yes, they have a lot of people, but a lot of the people that they have are very old, and and getting older. I couldn't remember the number, but the percentage of their population that's over 45 is astounding compared to the younger generation that has to do all the work. And so I was watching that, and you know how YouTube is. If you watch that, then it's going to recommend some other things and some other things. And I actually, when I listened to this guy talking about how this was affecting all the various countries, I saw it from clips of Jordan Peterson. I saw clips of Elon Musk. Elon Musk making the point about Japan, how right now they sell more adult diapers than baby diapers.
Yeah, that is a wild statistic, and that's kind of what caught my ear initially. I'm not like an Elon worshiper, but I don't think the guy's a moron either. So when he says something, I said, okay, I'm gonna look into this and see what's going on because he doesn't say things just for the hell of it. And so yeah, when I was checking out what he had to say on the subject, I'm like, okay, I need to dig more into this because what he's saying sounds plausible. I mean, because you sit there, you got to, you say if you look at the UN side of things, when they're talking about how they think the demographics are going, um, where is all this additional growth coming from if it's not coming from Europe? If it's not coming from China, if it's not coming from Russia, if it's not coming from Japan, it's not coming from South Korea. And there's virtually the places that do have growth. Essentially, you got France and the United States, and a lot of their growth is from immigration. And India's growth, although it's there, is not out of this world. They're beyond replacement, but they're not nowhere near like 60s third world, the vision we had of, like locusts flowing out of Asia and eating all the food in the world. Uh, they're definitely, they're above replacement, but they're not going bonkers at it either. So it's like, where's all this growth coming from? And when you start looking away from the UN statistics and start looking at other people's statistics, it's like it's painting kind of a grim picture in terms of population.
Yes, and and what that does, like I never had really thought it, because I know you hear comics make jokes about it all the time and everything. Oh, the problems we have are because we have too many people. But if you don't have enough people to keep doing the work, then that's the thing. Like, and you had mentioned the U.S. doing well, or I would say better than,
Mm-hmm.
because it still is kind of a drag here. But yes, the U.S. can do it, but we're not going to do it like we do it now.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to have the same world. We're not going to have the same economic system, because there just simply isn't going to be anybody to get it to us
Mm-hmm.
from other places.
Yeah, and this is I think this is the part. I mean, obviously there's a two-part thing that the average person has trouble getting their brain wrapped around. One is it's been beat into their heads their whole life that the population is rising and this is our biggest problem. And so I think it's a lot to expect somebody to hear the opposite and just immediately accept it. And it's fair, to doubt something so radical. I mean, you're basically saying, well, to the argument before is, yes, the population's growing and it's the biggest problem we have. And our counter is, no, it's not. And you can see it's logical for someone to say, well, no, that's not what I've been hearing my whole life. So that part of it I
Right.
kind of get. But the thing that's very troublesome is, and this is the part of where we're dealing with economic illiteracy, is they're not grasping the impact on division of labor. Okay, you've got two problems happening at once. First, a large chunk of your division of labor is going to be more and more bound to taking care of old people in diapers. Okay,
Right.
okay, and that's good for old people's standard of living, but it's not good for the rest of the population standard of living because it's nothing's being made but poo. So
Yeah.
and so that's a big problem. But then when you actually start contracting the population, your division of labor is getting worse, and people don't understand that the global scale system is the ultimate. Meaning that's essentially the free trade wet dream, is the idea that, okay, we have this ever expanding division of labor. It's like, okay, here in the US we don't make stuff anymore, we have the Chinese do that for us, and we do the high end stuff, we do the thinking, we do the coding, we do the financing, because that's not what a mature economy does, that's what a growing economy does. But the thing is if their population's contracting, how on earth are they going to continue making all the stuff for everybody else? And I think that's what people are missing, because the whole outsourcing of labor is just a variation of division of labor. Rather than just across a single economy in a country, it's across the world economy.
Yes, and it's just, that'll be crazy. It's just going to be a crazy thing to see. But like just in our country alone, and I don't know exactly how this is going to play out because, Zeihan was talking about the boomer retirement that is starting, has started and will continue on for the next decade. And it will increase every year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's 100%. I think that there are going to be a lot of boomers that are going to just keep working if they can.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know what that percentage is for the people that actually can retire, or this is going to sound mean, but a lot of really unhealthy boomers, and I don't know how long they're going to make it anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
It'd be interesting to see if our lifespan ends up recovering from the COVID contraction. If it basically hangs down a little lower, or actually we lose a little bit more ground based on other environmental things we're dealing with. I mean, that would be to a certain extent beneficial. Hopefully. Well, I mean, in a bad way. I mean, I'm closer. I'm closer to that than you are. So beneficial is a very. But yes.
Yeah, I'm dead center Gen X.
Well, okay, so yeah, so here's something that entered my head, and I'm sure it occurred to you as well. So imagine the Chinese with their very ruthless way of looking at solving problems. Because 40 years ago, you see where I'm going. 40 years ago, the big problem was too many children. So what did the Chinese do about it? Well, you're going to have one child, and you're going to be miserable beyond all belief if you even think of having a second. In fact, we'll kill them. We'll abort them if necessary if you go over our one-child limit. So what happens if some bureaucrat over there goes, a lot of our problems are we just got too many old people?
I mean...
yeah. I mean, it could get
this could get really, really nightmare.
Yeah, very freaking
real
grim.
Quick.
So, okay, here's where I get a little okay. It's always hard to consider the difference between somebody's doing something just because they're doing it versus is this part of a plan? And I'm almost wondering if their zealous desire to bring the Uyghurs to bend a knee is part of their thinking of, no, we need to, they are ethnically Chinese. They're just, they have a slightly different mix because of the Arabs that settled that area a long time ago. We need them to be culturally us because we need the manpower for the future. I wonder if that's part of their thinking process, because I can't imagine the Uyghurs have been that much of a problem for the Chinese. Or do you know something else along those?
No. I'm just. This is going to be a very off-color question, but how racist are the Chinese?
Oh, very. I mean
that.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm. Does that matter? Do they think, oh well, that's good enough? You're good enough, Chinese?
Well, I mean, obviously they do have a few different Chinese ethnicities, in the rest of China that they've essentially dealt with and amalgamated. I mean, there may be some kind of long-term hierarchical thing where it's like, oh, yeah, I could tell by your eyes that you came from Manchuria versus coming from the Han part of China and blah blah blah, and maybe there's some residual stuff there. But I mean, the amount. Are you familiar with the background of the Uyghurs, where they came from?
Not really, no.
Okay, so what happened is when the Islamic Empire made contact with the Chinese Empire, and they didn't come into direct contact. It was primarily their traders. And what had happened is China was in the middle of a really massive rebellion, and so the Emperor of China made a deal and brought in a crap load of Arab mercenaries, and they came in, helped him prop things up, and to reward them, he gave them all Chinese wives, let them settle that part of China, and that's history. So, and you were talking, I believe that would probably have been about 900 AD. So that's a long time to assimilate.
Oh,
So I'm wondering how much. So I'm wondering if the biggest difference between them is, the cultural thing, because it. Well, I don't know. This is kind of a rabbit trail, so I'm just kind of mulling on it. But so I'm wondering how much of the actions the Chinese are doing in terms of essentially they're in kind of apparent saber rattling in the region, their attempt at trying to leverage resources around the world with their Belt and Road initiatives and other things like that. Uh, is this just a natural outgrowth of where they're at? Or do they realize the population trap they put themselves into and they're trying to essentially prep themselves for the future? Because I mean, obviously, the long time meme of the Chinese is they're long thinkers. Is that a reality, or is that just something the West imposes upon them?